So, hey, Carolyn,
Hi.
really nice to have you here. I'm so happy that we knew each other,
Yeah.
and we are having this opportunity for you to tell us about your experience, your
Mhm.
background, what do you do in your day-to-day life as a behavior analyst, as a BCBA. So really nice to have you here. Thank you
Thanks for having me.
very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I want to start asking you about your background. So what
Yes.
was your bachelor's degree, your master's degree? How did you become a BCBA?
Well, long story short, so my bachelor's degree is actually in journalism. I did not know anything about ABA, anything about behavior analysis when I went to school. It's not as prevalent in my area of New England as it was when I lived in Florida. So I had a degree in journalism, and when I graduated college, I actually joined a full-time volunteer program for this organization called Covenant House, which is a homeless shelter for youth under 21. And they placed me in Fort Lauderdale, and that's how I got to Florida. So I moved to Fort Lauderdale. I worked at Covenant House as a volunteer for a year and a half, and then I stayed for an additional year and a half. So my job there was as a case manager. So I would help the youth find like apartments. I would help them with money management, help them with communication skills. I worked with a lot of youth who, ran away from their families, were running away from gangs, victims of sex trafficking, victims of abuse, teen moms, just different teens with like different experiences and backgrounds. And I got into ABA because actually a colleague of mine was going back to school for ABA. And I was like, oh, wow, like you can actually like work with individuals on changing their behaviors and helping them maintain independence and help them, kind of um, go through life in an easier way. And I just felt like it would work so well with the teens that I worked with. So I left and I got a job at a preschool as an ESC, a special needs teacher aide. So I worked with students with autism in a preschool classroom. And then I went back to grad school, got my master's in developmental disabilities from NOVA, Southeastern University in Fort Lauderdale, with a concentration in ABA. I moved to the clinic setting, and that's where I got my hours. So I worked in a clinic, an intensive behavior clinic for about, I want to say I was there for like 2 years, passed my boards, and then found myself working for a couple different companies, in home, in community, in clinic, school settings, working with like a variety of age groups. So not just like the 3-year-olds and the 4-year-olds and the 5-year-olds, but also working with teenagers and young adults with autism. And that's what I do now. I have a lot of teenagers that I work with. I created a job program for the company I work with. So we do a lot of job training, helping them get into college, doing on the job support. So like shadowing as well. But then I work with a lot of like adolescent age, like elementary school age, helping them with, I incorporate a lot of ACT into my programs and helping them with social skills. So I kind of done it all. So
Oh,
yeah.
wow. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Lots of things that you were talking, and I want to know more about. I
Yeah.
love it, like everything that it made part of your experience.
Yeah.
So, you said that you were an intensive behavioral therapist
Yeah. Yeah.
while you were doing your hours for the BCBA. So for the ones that doesn't know,
Mhm.
because here in Brazil we have like totally different systems,
Yeah.
and the BCBA is not valid here. So you had to do your supervision hours in order
Yeah.
to make the test, to
Yeah.
take the test.
Mhm.
Uh, and what kind of jobs, like you said this one, so what kind of jobs you could do in order to have your supervised hours?
Yeah.
So you chose this one. What
Mhm.
exactly you did out there? What were your options? Just for us to know more how the system works, because here like it's totally different. So just
Yeah.
for us to learn from your
Mhm.
experience.
Yeah. So I did work in a clinic setting, and it was intensive. A lot of the individuals I worked with had severe aggression, self-injury, tantrums. So I worked in this clinic doing direct ABA with them, whether it was like discrete trial training or natural environment training, working with clients that were seeing like 20, 30 hours a week, working on social skills, working on communication skills. Toilet training was a big one. Also doing parent trainings in the home, working in the schools, going out in the communities to help, even though we were in the clinic, we would go in the homes and the communities to help work on the skills out there as well. I also have experience in the functional analysis, which is basically the way that we determine why a behavior may be occurring. So working in a clinic setting was really a good place to get experience in that, because we're able to conduct the FAs. So those were some of the job duties that I had, like creating programs, running assessments, doing the FAs, helping with parent trainings. But say you aren't working in a clinic setting, you're working in the home setting, with individuals with autism or special needs. Those are some of the other things you can do to get your hours, is running those direct ABA sessions, helping with assessments, helping with parent trainings, with the BACB, which is the board that certifies behavior analysts up here. They have a list of things that you can do to obtain those hours. They're very stringent with what you can and cannot do. But that's some of the things that we would do, like the parent trainings and the assessments, and helping to, create programs. Well, we can't do that, but like, in a sense, like helping the behavior analysts, like programs, if they need help with that. That's kind of some of the things that I would do.
Great. And for that time specifically, I want to ask you, how was your supervision experience? Because that's something that you usually talk on your social media, that we have lots of people also talking about, bringing awareness of this relationship between the supervisor and the RBTs, ABAs. And we have lots of problems in this relation, because what it actually happens is that supervision, in many times, it is not occurring, like really occurring.
Yeah.
So we also have this problem here, because supervision here is not mandatory, because you don't have a board that you need to go and take your test and have those experience hours. So the system is totally different. But supervision occurs. But what I most hear is that, my supervisor, they just give me the goal that I should work with.
Yeah.
But they don't give me the program written.
Right.
So I need to write my own program. They don't give me the support that I need. So we have like many problems, and I believe the US is not totally different.
Yes.
So tell us about your experience.
Yes. So I would say my experience is probably unique because I was in a clinic setting. We were a very small clinic, that I got supervision maybe 2 or 3 times a week. I probably got 3 or 4 hours of supervision a week. I know that's not the case for everybody, especially on my social media page, people reach out to me saying they hadn't seen their supervisor in 2 months. And that's unethical. We have our ethics code that we have to follow, that's written by the board. We have to provide supervision. And actually it's the CASP, which is the, the Council of Autism Service Providers. They recommend at least 20% supervision, or at most like between 10 and 20% is what they recommend. If your client is seen, actually, they recommend 20%. A lot of insurance companies up here, though, require at least 10% of supervision a week. Okay. So where I live here in Connecticut, we have Husky Insurance, which is our state-funded insurance. They require at least 10% of supervision a week. And what that supervision needs to look like, and the reason we have supervision, is to make sure the programs are being run efficiently, to make sure that we're looking at the data, to make sure the client is making those gains, making sure the client is making progress and making changes if we need to. It is not the behavior technician's job to change the program. It's our job. I might have my behavior technician, hey, can you probe a couple of these goals for me? And that's part of the job description, but it's not their job to write the programs. That's our job as behavior analysts. And it's our job to make sure we're supervising and providing that support, especially if an individual is engaging in high intensity behaviors. We need to be out there to support them. So, it is an issue that I see up here in the United States where people aren't getting supervision at all. And that's unethical. And I also think it's, the company's job to make sure that their, staff are getting supervised, making sure the behavior analysts are going out for supervision.
Yeah.
And
something that I see really unique in the United States also is when you guys say, "Oh, I work for an agency," and this agency, for example, has the BCBAs and the RBTs. Is not usually called like clinic, but it's What is the difference like when you guys say agency and when you say clinic? I usually hear like, oh, I work in a clinic, or it has an agency, and the agency provides the BCBA or the RBT.
Yes. So a lot of companies or agencies up here in the United States do not have clinics. So a clinic would be a place where they go to have therapy. Yes. But a lot of agencies up here just provide in-home therapy. And a lot of reason why agencies provide just in-home is because that's where the behaviors are occurring. It makes sense to provide therapy where the behaviors are occurring to, practice those skills in the natural environment. So that's kind of the difference there between the agencies and the clinics. Yeah.
Oh, great. Because like, it's so common, especially parents that are new receiving the services.
Yeah.
That they maybe think that here this happens a lot. I don't know if parents in the US think about that, but here they think that, oh, they need to go to the clinic because therapy in the clinic will be better. Like when they are newly diagnosed.
Yes.
They have this thought. And then when they start to get tired of this life of going to clinics and spending all day long, they start, oh my God, I can't stand anymore this life of being in a clinic like for all day. At home is so much better. Because it has also situations like if you will teach some independent living skills, like take a shower, brushing the teeth, dressing the clothes, like you won't be able to do that in a clinic, and you will but it's not the ideal of teaching.
Exactly.
So once they leave this, it's much easier, because I was this parent. I was thinking about, we will have to go to the clinic, and it was so hard to drive like long hours to arrive to a clinic and be there, and then come back, and sometimes the kid is sleep in the car and arrive is sleeping for the session. So all those kinds of things. So it's so good. I love like in-home therapy, because I think that it's like really good for the child and to the family.
And, I worked in a clinic for 3 years, and the individuals that we served in the clinic, it was beneficial because they were early learners with like severe language delays that needed that one-on-one. But if we didn't have the in-home component or that parent training, then the clinic was just it wouldn't have been effective, because you can learn in one environment, but we know with applied behavior analysis, it's about that generalization. It's about making sure that you can engage in those behaviors across all settings. So not just in a clinic setting, but can they request their wants and needs at home? Can they, wait for things, or like, tolerate being no at home? It's not just in the clinic setting. And I think it's important for families to know that parent involvement is so crucial. Parent training is so crucial because, and I've actually worked with families where I just do parent training. Because if I can give them the tools and the strategies, and that's enough, and I've seen it be very effective with maybe like older learners who maybe had like a couple, like, you know, maybe they had like minor tantrums or the family needed help with structure in the home. Like that would be my goal during parent training, and they didn't need a direct ABA. But yeah, it's so important to involve the families because they're also key in their child's success.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I have worked, I don't know if you know the Ruby parent training.
Yep, I do that.
Yeah, I am a Ruby certified therapist. So
awesome.
I did all the training with Dr. Karen Bears. So I get you when you talk about parent training, totally, because like they need to embrace that. And also professionals, they need to learn that parent training is not feedback outside this after the session, because here I don't know if it is a practice out there, but here we have like once you finish the session, you give some feedback for the parent.
That's what we do here too.
Everything was okay today. He was calm. We could do many activities, and that's okay. So, for example, 5 minutes of feedback, but this is not parent training. So we need to really like incorporate that, because what happens, it usually is like just this feedback outside the session. So
and I work with one of the insurances we work with in Connecticut is a state-funded insurance, and insurance companies here in Connecticut, they have different codes that you have to bill for certain services. So it's like a different, you have to bill separately for parent training. Okay. But the state funded insurance that I work with in Connecticut, Husky, they don't have a separate parent training code, but they do require that you do parent training. So I think it's important for behavior analysts here in the United States, if they work with state funded insurances, to know that even though there's not a separate parent training code, if there's like an umbrella code for like supervision, observation, which is the code that we bill for this, that includes involving the parents. So what I do is the last 30 minutes that I have supervision with my staff is I meet with the parents and do training. I train them on what we're working on, how they can do it at home. I might incorporate the Ruby if it's appropriate for them. But it's just so important to set aside that time for supervision. Are for parent training. But it's also important to know that parent schedules are busy as well. It's hard. Sometimes it's hard to schedule parent training, but as long as we try our best and make an effort to involve the parents, even if it's, a once a week phone call or shooting an email to say, hey, this is what we worked on today. I have parents that I don't meet for formal parent training once a week because their work schedules, but I stay in contact with them like 2-3 times a week on their child's progress. And giving them tips and strategies on what they can do at home.
Yeah, we need to set this as a priority. I think that's the main thing. Once they understand that, they will seek for that. They will want this. And when you were telling us about insurance, that's like a huge issue, because someone needs to pay for all of this service. And then it has a pressure for billable hours and everything. And it has, like you told us, specific codes. And I think that the US, like, it's years ahead of us, because here it is like for, I don't know, not so many years that ABA is being covered by insurance.
Yeah, so, not so long ago.
So we need to still like grow and get more mature, because it is not right for the insurance to pay for a service that it's not being correctly handled. So that's something that it's really happening here. Sometimes here we have more clinics, so sometimes the clinic is not actually delivering those service, but they are putting is as billable hours.
Yes, we see that in the United States too.
Oh, really?
There's a lot of like insurance fraud. You know, when I lived in South Florida, I saw there was a lot of it in like Miami where they were billing Florida Medicaid, which is the state funded insurance in Florida, for hours that weren't happening. I remember reading a case where they were literally billing for 24 hours in the day. And like, why was that happening? Like, there's no way, right? So, you know, fraud happens all the time in the United States too. And I think it's important that to prevent, you know, because we get audited, you know, companies get audited all the time. It's important to make sure that your notes are thorough, making sure you're writing down what you worked on. This is why supervision needs to happen, to make sure that, you know, programs are actually being implemented during session. You know, we're not babysitters, we're providing a therapy, we're providing a service. But yeah, fraud happens in the United States here too. And it's unfortunate that people take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Especially state-funded insurances where parents don't have to pay out of pocket. So I think that's why they take advantage, is because the parents don't have to pay anything out of pocket. So they know it's all covered. And I think that's why, yeah.
And what I see is that insurance also, they are lost, because what it happens here is that like they started to pay for ABA because parents, they had to go to court. So a judge said, oh, you need to pay. And then the insurance, they okay, so you said that I need to pay, so I will pay. But for who I will pay? Because who is this professional that I need to pay? For how much would be this service? So what happened here, it is still happening, is that sometimes we have like behavior analysts charging more than a doctor. Because we don't have enough professionals.
Yeah.
So they took advantage of this. And like, I get that, like, behavior, like not just behavior analysts, but everyone has the right to be well paid and valued. But the things like they stayed like too much. So how is the billing process? Could you tell us more about that on the first, so it has some value, that it's like, oh, so assessment, we will pay like for hours, and the hour rate, it is X. Something like that.
So it depends on the insurance here, because every state, so with the United States, every state has their own, like, you know, we have our big insurance companies like Aetna, Cigna, United, but then each state has their own. Like, for example, Florida, you know, Blue Cross Blue Shield is a nationwide insurance company, but Florida has their own branch. They have Florida Blue, right? So every state has their own. So it just depends on what state you live in. So some insurance companies will say, okay, we're going to reimburse you a flat rate for the assessment. So they'll reimburse the company like a flat rate. Or a lot of insurance companies now, like Husky is the state-funded insurance in Connecticut. So they'll say, okay, you get 14 hours for the assessment, which is a lot of hours for an assessment, which is nice, because when I lived in Florida, it was like, or even now working with like other private insurance companies, it's like 8 hours for an assessment. But, you know, it's like 14 hours that we get for an assessment, and they'll pay us like a certain rate per hour. And it's a little bit more than the actual rate. So then, usually here in the United States with the insurance companies, they pay by 15-minute increments. So it's like, they call it a unit. So every 15 minutes is a unit. So they're like, okay, well, we'll pay $12, $14 per unit for a behavior technician. Okay. And then if a BCBA is working, then we'll pay, you know, $20 per unit or something like that. So that's how much they reimburse us. And then they might reimburse less for, like, if there's group services. Usually parent training's the same reimbursement, but that's just how they work, is they'll have a set, each insurance company is different. They'll have a set rate that they reimburse. But you'll hear a lot of companies like talk about what insurance companies kind of reimburse more than others. I found that the state-funded insurances, like the Medicaids, might reimburse a little bit more than the private insurances. That's just my experience. Like Husky Insurance here, they reimburse, it's $84 an hour for a BCBA that they reimburse. Whereas Like Cigna, for example, I believe is like between the 70 is like around 70. So not much difference, but still like, every company is different. Every insurance company is different.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I got curious is that you said, for example, that it's per unit. So you said an example that an RBT is 12 per unit, but a BCBA would be like 20.
Yeah. And that's just a guesstimate average of
Yeah.
like all the insurance companies. Yeah.
But it's not what called my attention. It is that it is not so, the difference is not so big.
Yes.
Like it is like $8, okay, but it's not double or triple.
Yeah. Because like in Florida, I believe off the top of my head, I believe the reimbursement rate, if you do the math for a behavior tech, it's like $50 an hour that the company gets. And then this is Florida Medicaid. And then for BCBA, it's only like 80. So there's like a $30 difference, which is not like, it's not double at all. It's kind of a small difference. Yeah.
Because we are talking about someone that they could be doing their hours for the BCBA, for example, but we could be talking of someone that it does not have a master's degree or a bachelor's degree. This is what called my attention, because here is really normal for you to have, we don't call RBT, but the person doing the same job as the RBT, who has a bachelor's degree, who has a post-graduation. That's like the most common thing for you to have someone with this degree. Usually you won't have someone with no degrees being in RBT.
Yeah.
But that's because our educational system for university is cheaper. So we don't have like a really expensive education speaking on universities.
Yeah. Our education system here in the United States is very expensive.
Oh my God.
I paid $40,000 a year for my undergrad, and I hear that it's like maybe $20,000 or $30,000 more now. It's ridiculous, but yeah. RBTs here, the behavior technicians, to be a registered behavior technician, you only need to do a 40-hour course, complete a competency assessment, pass a background check, and then you need to have a high school diploma to be a registered behavior technician.
Yeah, that's like, if you do the math, like for how long you had to work in order to receive back the money that you invested on your education.
And because on top of my undergrad, I have my grad school, which was also $20,000 a semester. So yeah, it's, it's expensive. Education is expensive here. And then, you're working your butt off as a behavior analyst, and it's, getting the money back that you invested. I'm still not there yet. So
I got you. And something that you also were talking about yesterday on social media, and I love it. And it made me think, while we were talking about billable hours, it is how could a BCBA, and I think that this could be a good topic on content, just an idea. So how a professional like BCBA or BTs, like everyone who works with neurodevelopmental population, what can we do to program yourself when it is spring break or vacations, summer vacations and holidays? So you will receive less hours in this period, but your bills, they won't stop.
They will not stop.
No.
Yeah. It's hard because one of the things that I find just with talking with other individuals on my social media page is that PTO is not a major benefit in our field up here. Some companies might provide PTO, but it's on the...
Let's just say what it is PTO.
Oh, sorry, paid time off. Paid time off. Sorry, paid time off. So basically, like when you take time off, you still get paid.
Okay.
And that's a benefit that a lot of companies in the United States offer, but for some reason with ABA, it is not a big benefit. And a lot of it is maybe companies might not be able to afford it. But then that comes with a cost. You know, I'm an independent contractor, meaning that I work for myself. I contract with another company. I'm not employed by anybody. I have to pay my own taxes. I create my own schedule. That's a sacrifice that I make. And I know very well I'm not going to get paid time off because I work for myself.
Mm-hmm.
But someone who is a full-time behavior analyst with a company that doesn't provide paid time off or only provides maybe 5 days a year, you know, you're working your tail off to not get any rewards. Or you might take a week off and then you're told, okay, but you still have to work 140 billable hours this month. You need to make it up. So then you're, you know, working so hard the week before just so you can have a week off. It's like, sometimes is it worth it if you're not getting that benefit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you talked about like you are an independent contractor, so you have different possibilities to work as a BCBAs for
Yeah.
agencies or clinics. So could you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah. So I became an independent contractor probably 4 months into my career as a behavior analyst, just because I felt like I could make the same, this is just me personally, I could make the same amount of money working half the hours because I didn't have an obligation to meet a certain requirement. And with that, I had the freedom to take other jobs. So right now, I'm working with a company in Florida doing telehealth, and we're expanding our company here in Connecticut. So while we're expanding our company, I picked up a part-time job with an ABA agency in Hartford, Connecticut. It is an employee position. I'm not an independent contractor with them because independent contract positions are very hard to find here in Connecticut, but they treat me like an independent contractor. They give me that autonomy, which is really hard to find. But because it's part-time, I don't get any benefits. I don't get paid time off. I don't get health insurance. The good thing about the United States is that you can apply for health insurance online if your company doesn't offer it. And Connecticut has a really solid health insurance company or a health insurance program where I get it for like really inexpensive and I get really good health insurance. But a lot of other states don't have that benefit. I'm just lucky that I live in Connecticut. They have all these good benefits. But yeah, that's just kind of what I do. So I'm independent contractor, so I can work for other companies and I kind of have that freedom where I can control my schedule. I can take on as many clients or as little clients as I want. I can take time off whenever I want. It's not paid, but I can take it off without feeling guilty or being made to feel guilty. I have no requirements of me except I have to, you know, supervise my clients and do my job. And the only downside is I have to pay my own taxes, but you know.
Yeah. And then you have your other job, and this you need to like have a certain time, like your schedule, for example.
Yeah, so all my clients are really seen in the afternoon for both companies. So, you know, as long as I supervise my clients at least 10% of their hours a week, then I'm good. So I do my schedule every month, like before the end of the month, I'll do my schedule for the next month. And what's nice about my second job is that they allow telehealth. So me to supervise virtually. So I don't, because Hartford is like 45 minutes from where I live, 45 minutes to 50 minutes. So it's sometimes hard to get up there. And I have clients in my little region of Connecticut too, which is, you know, southeastern Connecticut. So I find my balance. I'm able to schedule my clients and miraculously I'm able to see them all every week. So, and still my goal, I set a goal for myself to bill at least 20 billable hours a week. And that's enough to pay my bills and save. So that's good enough for me. Yeah. You know, I don't want to bust my butt because I just want comfort and I have enough hours to actually bill more than 20 hours a week. But as long as I meet that 20-hour requirement, I'm good.
Okay.
I don't know how agencies require their staff to bill 35 hours a week. That is a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
That's an over 40-hour week.
And especially if you are delivering like direct services.
Yeah.
So if you are with kids for
Mhm.
35 hours, like it also makes a difference for like
Yeah.
when you are doing like paperwork, reports, or writing programs. It's different than when you are direct with a client.
Exactly. Like right now, one of the problems that we have in our field is like turnover. So technicians leaving. And right now I have, I'd say like 3 clients without technicians. So 2 of them I'm providing direct services in the meantime. And that's just me. I'm not required to, but like I would hate for them to go without services. So I'm going up there and seeing them 3 times a week just because I don't want them to be without services. And then now that we have technicians, I'm training, right? So I have to be up there and train. So it's a lot. It's a lot, but this field is never dull. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, like you
Yeah.
you really need to like be there, like
Yeah.
lots of responsibilities.
Yeah, definitely.
I get. And what it's like when you say that you are doing supervision,
Mhm.
what exactly are you doing? Like, you told us a little that so you need to write your programs, change stimulus on the programs and everything. Um, so this supervision occurs in the same moment as the therapy is delivered.
Yes. Yes. So I'm observing the technician with the client. I'm providing feedback to the technician. I'm a very involved supervisor, and I'm a very collaborative. So I'm not like my way or the highway. I always come in and I ask the technician, "How's everything going? Do you have any questions for me?" And then we work together. That's just my style. I'll model new programs for them. I use like a behavioral skills training format. So I'll like teach, model, we'll role play, I'll provide feedback. And then I update programs, I'm reviewing data, involving the parents when I can. So it's really just a time for me to check in on the client, check in on the technician, see how everything's going, check the data, probe new programs, train the tech on new programs. It's kind of just my check-in.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you managed to do all that like in an hour.
So we actually get 2 hours.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So sometimes I'll schedule supervision for 2 hours because here in the United States, there's really no limit as long as they approve like a certain amount of hours a week. You can, so I usually schedule for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. And sometimes that's still not even enough time, it's a lot. But I try to see my techs once a week, which I know is rare. Not a lot of supervisors can do that, but I do try to see them at least once a week, just so I stay on top of the programs because my clients are always making progress so quickly.
Yeah, you need to keep
Yeah.
changing
Yeah.
or the stimulus or the program.
Yeah.
And usually like you do like when you have to change a program, for example, you do that while you are in the supervision, or you bring this already ready for the time of the supervision.
So it depends on the insurance. So a lot of insurances won't allow you to do that. They won't allow you to bill for that outside of session. So I would have to do it in supervision. So technically with the insurance codes, my supervision is really for like protocol modification, like changing the program, directing. The only difference is with like Husky insurance here in Connecticut, they do allow 4 hours every 3 months to do program updates, which is really nice because not a lot of insurances allow that. So unless it's a Husky client, then I'm usually updating the program in session.
Wow, that's a lot.
It's a lot. That's why I like try to build 2 hours and do supervision for 2 hours. But then like if the client is engaging in like a lot of behaviors that day, it can be hard sometimes to change the program during session.
Yeah. So
that's why I like telehealth too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about telehealth.
Yeah.
Because I feel that after COVID, people are more willing to accept telehealth.
Yeah.
I felt like still a little people do not taking so
Yeah.
in so good like telehealth, not seeing with a good eyes. But
Yeah.
now I'm thinking that everyone is accepting better.
Yeah.
So usually like you were on a telehealth, for example, and then you have your RBT conducting a session on some program, and then you can be like updating and writing a new program that you already saw, for example.
Yeah. Yeah. So, when my Florida clients, I do entirely telehealth, which is challenging because I like to, if I'm doing telehealth, I like to be there in person at least once or twice a month. To make sure that I'm there modeling. But yeah, telehealth is a good benefit because if, say, it's like a session where the RBT is running the session, you can use that as an opportunity to like look at graphs and update programs and stuff. It is hard with telehealth. Sometimes there are some downsides, like you're not able to see everything. Sometimes staff need that in-person supervision, the clients need that in-person supervision. There are like pros and cons to it, but I found it to be very beneficial with my clients now because it does allow me the time to like update and do graphs and enter my data and update the data and all that, without being there in person, which can sometimes, there are a lot of distractions sometimes, which I love seeing my clients in person, but there can be distractions.
Because you have many things to manage, like happening at the same time.
Yeah. I have one little guy that loves my laptop. Whenever I pull it out, he'll come and like touch it. So it's like, it's hard to do program updates because he wants to look at the pictures I have. And, of course, how can I say no? Like,
yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
And what could you tell us about collecting data, how you train your RBTs on doing that? Usually you use like paper data and then fill this on a software or a spreadsheet. How do you usually organize that? Because that's a big challenge for everyone.
So I have experience with 3 different platforms for data collection. Catalyst is the one I started with, and I like Catalyst because you can collect data in real time and it's a lot easier. But I use Central Reach and BipTrack, which is a local based out of Connecticut, and I like them both. But sometimes it's challenging to collect data in the moment. So what I do is I create a data sheet for my staff and I laminate it, so they can reuse it with a dry erase marker, and they collect data then. So the first day of session, especially my staff up here in Connecticut, I will go in and we'll work on just 1 or 2 goals the first day, and we'll do IOA data. So I'll say, okay, I want you to keep track of the aggression. Okay, how many did you get? I look at how many I got, and then we make sure, and then I retrain if I need to. But I really, with the data collection, because for me, it's not always about the data, especially the first couple of weeks, about building that rapport and that relationship. So we really start one step at a time. We'll start with 1 or 2, and then we'll add a few more, and then we'll just keep adding until they're comfortable running the whole program. But I just want to make sure that they're comfortable collecting the data because it can be overwhelming.
That's a lot. Like you interact with the client, you manage a behavior, or you collect the data. So it is too much, and it is something that can scare you when you have a new RBT, a new professional that it's applying programs.
Yeah, definitely.
And so they collect the data and in this paper, and then they transfer for the software.
Yeah, so some of my staff like to do it in real time. So Central Reach is a little bit challenging. They have like what's called sessions. So you can collect data in real time, but it's hard because you have to like scroll through all of it. And it depends on how my techs like to organize themselves. But with BipTrack, there's also some challenges because sometimes you have to like click and it's just a lot of clicking. So yeah, it's easier sometimes just to do the paper data and then enter it. The last 15 minutes of session is when I have my techs do their data collection and their note writing, just to input the data.
Oh, okay. So, but they do this, like
they do it. Yeah. Yeah, and they do it.
and they do on every session, or in some cases you do like once a week of data? What?
It depends on the company, but the two companies I work for is every single session they have to enter their data. Actually, the one company I work with in Florida, they need their data for the note. They can't submit their note without the data. It's like one of the requirements. Yeah.
Okay.
So we use Central Reach, which is easier because it's literally just like a click the button and all your data inputs.
Yep.
Yeah.
And how do, like, you need to enter all the data and the notes you said on the system of the insurance?
So with the companies I've worked for, it's whatever system they have. So Central Reach has their own notes. So you like convert your session. So on your calendar, you click on your appointment and then you convert your timesheet and there's the note in there. So you would write your note and submit it. Where I use BipTrack, they have a separate section for notes. So you put your daily notes and the company's in charge of submitting the notes to insurance.
But you just need to, some you need to submit your notes and your data, and some you need to submit just your notes.
Yeah, so it depends on the platform. So like, I mean, I might be wrong with this, but the notes are really like if insurance will audit you to make sure like you're writing your notes. I think it depends on the insurance if you need to actually submit your notes every time. But I know with like what the BipTrack platform we use, they input their data, but it's not included in the notes. It's like a totally different format. Every company is different. When I first started, our notes were on, we wrote our notes on Catalyst, but it didn't include the data. So I would say the company that I use Central Reach with, they're very thorough with their notes, but yeah, it really depends on the company, but the insurance has a certain requirement for what should be included in the notes. So it really, you have to include like what you did during the session and all that.
I get. But usually how you do this, how do you send the billable hours for the insurance? So it has, I believe that it has some system of the insurance that you submit your billable hours. How do that work in practice?
So we have both companies I work for have someone in charge of submitting those hours to insurance. So I'm not in charge of that. I know some behavior analysts might be in charge of that, but I'm not. Which is nice. I have someone else that does it for me. So I submit my timesheet to them. They look through what like code I build, how many hours, and then they submit that to insurance to get the reimbursement. Yeah. So it's nice. I don't have to worry about
that. Yeah, because that's something that I hear when like that behavior analysts also have to do, like organize all this billable stuff and send. So it is like
it's nice. I don't have to deal with that, but I know some behavior analysts that do. So
okay, gotcha.
But they're probably not getting paid for either.
And you also said about ACT. So how did so let's say ACT, acceptance, commitment, therapy, or training. So when was the first time that you heard about ACT, and why did you want to study more and to incorporate ACT through your practice? So tell us a little about this.
I heard about it first in 2018. I was working with an individual who had a lot of mental health issues, and I was just, ABA wasn't the right therapy for this person, but that's a different story. But I read about ACT and I was like, this would be a really good component for my clients. So I started incorporating it when I discovered the AIM curriculum, AIM. I love it. And I started using it with all my clients, especially my adolescents. So my like 9 to 13-year-olds. And it's been a game changer since implementing it. I've noticed that they're able to like kind of manage their emotions better, like be able to express themselves better, be able to know how to handle when they're feeling anxious and I think it's such an important component to ABA because ABA is not about just the behaviors you can see. sometimes how you're feeling affects your own behaviors, and only you can control that. And incorporating ACT into my programs has been a game changer. Another thing that I do is this program called Everyday Speech. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No.
But it's a video modeling curriculum. Right. It's like $300 for the year, but they have video modeling. So it goes over like problem solving, social skills, friendship skills, stuff like that. But they also have mindfulness activities. So like meditations and breathing exercises. And I always end my sessions with a mindfulness activity. And my clients are always like relaxed and calm, and they start incorporating it. I had one client of mine who really struggled with like confrontation and like when there was a conflict, knowing what to do. And I got a phone call from the mom like last week saying that there was a conflict between him and the parents. And in the past, it would take him like an hour to calm down. But since I incorporated ACT, he realized I'm not handling this appropriately. He went to his room, took a break, came back out and apologized and solved the conflict with the parents.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Fantastic.
And that's what you want to see. That's what you want to see. It's not just discrete trial training. It's not just natural environment teaching. ACT is so important.
Yeah. Once you start like studying, I know because I had passed through this process of studying ACT, and it's something that I want to study more, that I have on my goals for this year. And once you start, you cannot stop. Like you start like, you incorporate. And I think that this is like what we do with also ABA. Because we incorporate, like we see the life through this lens. So I think that ACT is a little like this.
Yeah.
And also when I also like your contents when you say about ABA and dating.
Yeah.
So please tell us, because it's also I like to teach people that it's ABA is not a method.
Yeah.
It's not a technique that you learn and you insert in your practice. So it is a science, and once you start living and seeing the world through the lens of this science, you have a different approach, a way of seeing and understanding behavior.
Yeah.
So I really love it because it's a way for people to generalize their knowledge on ABA, on behavioral science.
Yeah, thank you. I started it, I'm divorced, so I started it when I started dating again. And the last time I was single was over 10 years ago, like before my divorce. So this was before like dating apps when I was single. So I got on the dating apps. I was brand new to them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this would be great to analyze these behaviors. And that's when I started, because I was just like, I need to have fun. I was feeling like a little stuck in my life. I wanted to do something with ABA that was different. And I felt, why not analyze dating behaviors? I'm going through it now. I did take a pause because I am in a relationship now, but now that I'm in a relationship, I'm like, wait, I can still analyze these dating behaviors. I can still analyze relationships. So I'm doing it again, and I love it. It's been so much fun.
Yeah. It's so good because when I see like different applications of behavioral science, that's when we really can see that we are generalizing our knowledge of the science.
Yeah.
So that's something that many people they struggle with.
Yeah.
Because they think as ABA as a technique, a methodology, a method, and in order to be a good behavior analyst and to provide good services, you need to really has a more deep knowledge of the science, because then you can it is not a recipe. So a program is not a recipe.
Yeah.
So you need to individualize, and you only be able to do that if you have a profound knowledge.
Exactly. And ABA can be used with health and fitness. There are a lot of Instagram accounts that utilize ABA in health and fitness. ABA can be used with so many things, right? businesses, OBM, operational behavior management, businesses, even with ACT, there are just Instagram accounts that talk just how ACT and like using ABA on yourself, using ACT on yourself.
Yeah. Gerontology.
Gerontology, gun safety.
Yeah.
Sports and medicine.
Yeah.
That's a big one too.
Yeah. It's great because once we start telling people about that, they start opening their eyes.
Yeah.
So they see a different thing. So that's what I like to train people on, that just that it's not a method, that it's not a methodology, and I'm not being like boring on saying about that you need to go deeper in your knowledge of the science. So I always say that, no, I'm not saying this to say that I'm better than anyone.
Yeah.
No, it's just because when you internalize those concepts and this theory, you don't like mix concepts.
Yeah.
And then it comes a time that you see things and you don't know what you are doing anymore, and what is your scope of practice and scope of knowledge. So things like get blurred. So that's what I like to bring people. So you were providing a service inside ABA, you were basing your practice inside behavioral science. That's okay if you are an SLP, OT, PT, a teacher, but you just need to be aware of what you were doing and what is the basis of what you were doing.
Exactly. ABA is an umbrella.
Yeah.
It's not just autism treatment. There's so much more.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So what kind of services do you provide? You work for the companies, so you also do some supervision, like independent. So if people want to reach you to do some supervision, some consulting for families or parents, they can do that.
So I provide services privately. So if anyone is looking for some consultation in this field or tutoring or supervision, I provide that on my own as well. So not just with clients, but if you're looking to become a behavior analyst and you need supervision or you just want consultation, I provide that as well.
Okay, great. So, Carolyn, I just want to thank you so much for your time. Like, this will be a content of a huge value to everyone, because we could talk more about daily practices, things that you don't read in the books, you don't read on Google. So it was so good, because I know that lots of people, they have these doubts, and sometimes they don't have anyone to reach. And I think that we have a lot to learn with professionals that are in a different settings that we are here in Brazil. So we can learn and we can adapt to our reality. So I just want to say like many, many, many thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And I hope we can have a part 2 and we can manage to do something together, bringing you to give courses for us. Here in Brazil. So this is something that I definitely want to have you on board.
Definitely, I'd love to.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.